Hi, I'm Lisa Haver. I'm currently at Foghorn Therapeutics. I have never actually been involved in this. This is really cool and new to me, so thanks for having me. Hi, everyone.
Hi everyone, I'm Jazz Lee. I'm at Wolf Greenfield. It's an IP firm, but we do only intellectual property. And we'll be talking about that today. This is my first year here, and I'm really happy to be here. Thanks for having me.
Hi, my name is Lydia Ruffner. I am a senior scientist at Vertex Pharmaceuticals in Seaport. I used to go to Nova Shea and as a grad student, so I'm glad to be back around everybody. And definitely got back Northeastern as I went to grad school here too. So have great to see you guys.
Good morning. I'm Juana Mendenhall. I am currently Vice Provost of Academic Innovation and Learning at Morehouse College. And I'm also the Walter Massey Professor of Chemistry at Morehouse College, and I've been a member of a member of Nova Shea it's been probably 15 years or so, if not longer, since I was a graduate student. So happy to be here.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Brent Powell. I'm process chemist, associate director at Instrument in New Jersey. I've been involved in Nova Shea, I'd say maybe since I was an undergrad in Oregon State. It's been back and forth. But yeah, that's been several years, I think, this far. Yeah, thank you.
Truly grateful to you guys for being here. I don't know if I'm here.
But yeah, thank you guys for being here. We're really happy to have you. So some students put together questions that I thought were pretty phenomenal. A lot of it centered around transitioning, collaboration, your experience, within your realm of industry, etc. So I'm gonna just pick random ones and feel free to chime in and I'll tell you who it's directed to. So Lydia, okay, I'll start off with you. Vertex Pharmaceuticals is known for its focus on serious diseases. Could you share a bit about the unique challenges and rewards of working in drug discovery and development for such critical conditions?
Yes, so the company does focus on several rare diseases and several other diseases that impact large populations. One of the challenges that we see. Can everybody hear me? Perfect. So some of the challenges that we see are being able to reach multiple populations. For my disease, we work on type 1 diabetes, and so we're a gene therapy company making stem cells. So we have to be able to reach people with all blood types. So that's one of the challenges we see. So being able to use our scientific knowledge and techniques to be able to make edits to these cell lines to be able to be used in multiple populations is one of our large challenges, or using CRISPR gene edited products towards other diseases. It's not new, but it's a still up and coming process of using gene editing to address certain diseases. So it definitely poses a challenge, but it's an interesting challenge that we tackle every day and have been very successful at doing, and we look forward to continue doing that.
Thank you. Lisa, I would love to know on your end, because you're with Foghorn Therapeutics, what excites you the most about cutting edge science at Foghorn, and how does your work contribute to its mission?
That's a good question.
So I failed to mention earlier that I'm actually on the legal team, so I'm in intellectual property. I'm not a scientist there, but so as far as the work going on there, it's just really exciting to be a part of the larger fight against cancer, and to just see things coming out of the lab that people have never thought of before, and how this can affect patients and make their lives better is just a really cool thing to be a part of. And for me, I get to talk to the people doing the work and take their ideas and put them down on paper and hopefully someday get them a patent. So that's really exciting to basically be part of the people that make the company what it is. Because if a company doesn't have intellectual property, they don't really have anything. Especially if you're early on and don't have a product on the market. So my job of being involved in that is just really, really fun. And so being at, a company versus a law firm, I get to actually, walk down the hall, talk to the scientists, be like, what does this data mean? Where are you going next? And really like get into the nitty gritty. And that's really the part that I like about being in-house at a company.
I feel like we should have follow-up about communication just after the talk we had, because I'm sure you have to deal with a lot.
Okay.
Joss, Dr. Lee, sorry. So as someone who's also, you're actually also in intellectual property law, you bridge the gap between science and law. So what inspired you to pursue a career in IP, and what's the most challenging aspect of protecting scientific innovations?
Yeah, so just to let you know my career path, I was a PhD student in chemistry, and then partway through my program, I was in a lab, luckily, that did a lot of different types of projects and instead of focusing on one. And that's one aspect of the science that I really, really enjoyed. I wanted something that, I could still have my hands in science, and still use my skills in my graduate program. And so I actually came to a panel similar to this and found out about being a technology specialist and then a patent attorney. Just through discussions with other people. I had no idea that this career existed. And so I applied while I was in my PhD. I got hired by my law firm, and I didn't have any law background, but there's a program called the Technology Specialist Program where they want scientists, and they train scientists to understand the law. And so in my career, I worked with other lawyers and then went to school part-time that the law firm actually paid for, and became an attorney that way. So I've been at Wolf Greenfield now for 21 years. This is my only job after grad school. and similar to Lisa, it's such an amazing career where I get to also work with scientists and inventors on cutting edge technology. But the difference is you're using you're doing it with many different types of clients. I have a lot of startup companies, I work with universities and researchers there, large global corporations, and just the variety of issues that each institution and company has is just really, really intriguing. And so, some of the skills that you have in grad school are really pertinent to this job as well, like being analytical, asking the right questions, understanding the deep science, and you can understand that you really have to know the nitty-gritty of the science and know how to ask the right questions in order to write patents on the subject, and being able to challenge the inventors that you're working with and trying to increase the scope of what the protection is. And there's just a lot of skills that are transferable. I'd say like communication skills is really, really important. Your verbal skills, your written skills, you're constantly communicating your ideas to different types of people, and you change the type of communication depending on your audience. And so being able to effectively communicate your ideas is really important skill. And just being able to work with others, because a lot of times you're working in a team on these projects at a law firm, and you're working with teams, your clients are a team as well. And I think just honing those types of skills is really, really helpful for getting to this type of career.
Thank you for that. Dr. Mendenhall. So I'm going to ask you a slightly different direction of question. Your research bridges biomedical applications in polymer chemistry, areas that often require cross-disciplinary thinking. How did you find your research niche, and what advice would you give to graduate students struggling to define their own scientific identity?
So I think the best advice I can give to the graduate students is to just always remain curious. And I think that's been one of the selling points for me. I've always been curious and never afraid to try something new. And so by remaining curious and reading a lot and leveraging other expertises, I think earlier Devin spoke about, the different types of people you interact with, your communication style and your tone, being able to have conversations with people in different areas have been a benefit for me. So it originally started as a graduate student, and Dr. Hammond mentioned it last night, just walking down the hall at an institution and talking to someone, having coffee and discussing your ideas, and that will kind of start to bridge you working in a new area. And so being able to develop those relationships and have those conversations because you're curious and you've maybe read an article, that has allowed me to expand my knowledge outside of polymer chemistry, but also take risk. And sometimes the risk is a little harder than the reward, but I think the biggest trait is resilience. So although things may not happen fast, if you remain resilient and stay focused on the course, that is the benefit, the reward you will essentially receive. But it can be challenging. I'm at a small HBCU, and I'm at an undergraduate institution. So Morehouse College, all males. And so trying to do research can be, it can be an uphill battle at times. But I think the biggest skill set is to always expand your network. We're here for a reason. So making sure you connect, have conversations about whether you want to go to graduate school or have a postdoc or go into industry. This is the environment to start to have those conversations and develop those networks and relationships. And again, always remain curious.
Thank you for that. Dr. Powell, so you successfully navigated the transition from graduate school to a leadership role in biotech. What skills or experiences during your PhD best prepared you for your current position, and what do you wish you had known earlier about working in industry?
Yeah, it's a great question. I have some thoughts here. Three things. I think first, building that muscle to solve complex problems, both independently, but more importantly as a part of a team, has been really helpful. I think second, like you mentioned, just building resilience and grit, to navigate, ambiguity as well as failure. During grad school, I've had several failures, failed reaction, failed projects, rejected manuscripts, and yet you learn how to leverage a lot of those learnings, from those failures to, step in, something, so I think that's also important. And then third is learn how to communicate science clearly. That's essential when you were collaborating across functions in biotech, so that's really important. In terms of building muscle for just dealing with solving a problem, I think when you're in graduate school, you are constantly designing experiments. You're planning what's next. Who do I talk to when things fail? And so I think that's essentially what drug development is, right? Just at a bigger scale and at a bigger cost. So I think those things are really important.
Thank you. So we're going to shake this up and we're going to ask questions that any of you can answer. So feel free to jump in, okay? One of the first ones I would like to pose is what would you say was your biggest challenge in transitioning from academia to your current roles? Or if it wasn't your first job, even just that transition of moving from academia into industry. Anyone can answer.
Yeah, I'll jump in. So I think for me, one of the bigger challenges were, I think in academia you have your project, and it's, you sort of own the project, and you grow technically, right? So when you come into industry, you realize that your technical value is one piece of it, but building those non-technical muscles is just as important, or even more important than just being super technical. and they'll actually get you, you know, further. So, you know, building, you know, influence, prioritization, you know, being very adaptable, and really prioritizing working well with people. You know, I don't really want to be the most technical person in the room or the conversation, but really just prioritizing those relationships, you know, with people who, you know, can help you grow.
I'll kind of reiterate that as well. I think for me, so now I'm in administration. I was department chair as well of chemistry at Morehouse, but I think from being a faculty member at graduate school to a faculty member, the transition is, again, you're kind of one-dimensional in a sense with the technical piece, and then when you transition over to administrative roles, the managerial piece, and the personnel piece of how to manage your technical ability, but also manage others, communicate with others, which is really important. So I'm going to keep echoing that. It's essential, but also understanding different work styles, different cultural differences, and how to manage those are important. And ultimately making sure that you are a part of a team, you're focusing on the same end goal. That's been a transition for me. But one thing, somebody said your skills are transferable. As an undergraduate and a graduate student, even in the laboratory, having those moments of mentorship and training is essentially laying the foundation for how you will transition into working with different teams, even though they may not be centered in the technical space. So being able to learn how to transfer those comparable skills when you get into other areas is important. Although you may not see it now, you will eventually know like, oh, this is why I did this earlier. This is why I worked with maybe 2 undergraduate students to help build that, because it will transfer later on throughout your matriculation in your career.
I'd say for me, I came from a lab that did a lot of different projects, but typically in undergrad or graduate school, you focus on one problem and you dig really deep into that problem, and you have all the time in the world to figure that out. When you're in industry or a law firm, you don't have that time to really dig in deep into the issue. You have to understand the science really quickly, ask the right questions, but it really depends on what the client is asking for, and you don't have loads and loads of time to really dig into something, even if it's of interest to you. So I think that and the time management aspect was quite a challenge. When you're at a law firm, you're working on maybe 10, 20 different projects at the same time. You're working on them with different people. Different people have different expectations and work styles. You have to adapt to that, and you have to just manage your time really well, because you're probably the worst thing about a law firm is the billable hour requirement, where you have a certain number of hours you need to bill per year to the client, and you have to meet those hours, and you have to just be really efficient with your time.
Yeah, so I'll kind of, that's very hard, billable hours. That's kind of why I jumped ship into industry. In industry, you don't bill time, it's great. And you bill time by 6 minutes, which she forgot to mention. Which
Yes,
is
that's right,
fun.
every 6 minutes.
Yeah. So that's a challenge when you go to a law firm. I also went to a law firm first. Like she mentioned, it's kind of how you start when you come from, a science background into patent law. So that was tough, and also you're kind of thrown into a situation where you're kind of drinking from the fire hose, I call it, where you're just like, it's totally new language, it's new law, like you don't know any of it, and you're just trying to keep swimming. So you learn as you go, and you have great mentors, and you'll be okay. But it's a totally different language, and to learn how to speak and write in that language is definitely a challenge, I think.
I think one of the challenging things for me was definitely managing how the priorities of your program can shift very quickly. You can end up being focused on, this is your goal at the end of the year. By mid-year, your goals can change completely to completely different projects or working with a different team and being more matrix. So kind of understanding priorities will shift and kind of being able to be adaptable, being able to kind of pick up and kind of, if you need help, ask for it. Never being afraid to ask for help, even if you are a scientist, a director, there's always room to grow and always room to learn more. I remember on the interview I was told that your PhD is a license to learn. You're still learning as you go and grow through your career, even from the beginning to the end. So just being able to learn at any point in your career and being open to that from wherever it comes from is definitely going to be a very important thing and skill to keep going as you grow through your career.
Yeah, thank you guys. I guess as a side question, because you kind of mentioned asking for help and probably gaining some mentorship, how do you craft that for yourself in what seems like a professional space and you're not sure at that point, okay, who can I really reach out to and get help from? How do you start building that sense of mentorship and people that are safe to communicate with as you're asking those questions?
I think mentorship has been probably one of the most important components of my career. And, you know, I take it even a little further, not just mentorship, but sponsorship, right? You know, yeah, you have a coach, you know, you go to, you can bounce ideas off. But, you know, people who could really elevate your name in rooms where you're not present. And I think that has been an area where I'm always looking to find new mentors and also trying to reach back as well, you know, to make sure I pay it forward. But that has been one of the most instrumental, you know, component to, you know, having any success. I think it's also important as, you know, to make sure that you present yourself, or you have a good reputation, right? So a mentor could really speak on your behalf and feel, you know, like they're doing a service to themselves as well, because it can really elevate their career if, you know, they speak on someone's behalf and that person really, you know, does a good job or really, you know, work with some potentiality. So mentorship is awesome.
I would add to that the mentorship piece, the coaching piece, and allyship. And mentorship is important, and your mentors don't have to look like you. They don't have to be in your same area. They can be very different perspectives, and that's great to have because it helps you navigate and position yourself differently. Be open to the feedback from your mentorship, your mentor, but the allyship is also others that will do that, speaking your name in rooms that you're not a part of, to show that, you know, your brand, as we just learned earlier, is going to extend beyond where you are, right? And that allyship will allow that. And the coaching is essentially in the space where your supervisor or your direct report is helping you navigate that professional career path. So as a graduate student, your PI may not be able to provide much coaching yet, but when you actually get into a more professional setting, the coaching is the piece that will continue to guide you through executing some of those goals when you have to pivot really quick to make sure that you're still staying on track and meeting those metrics that you're supposed to meet.